One of the major challenges posed to revenue collection performance is absence of taxpayers' awareness of their rights and duties to the tax authorities, and by extension to the federal government of Nigeria.
That was Barrister Mrs. Cecilia Odibo, Tax Controller of the Alaba Micro and Small Tax Office of the FIRS at Alaba in Lagos State. You will agree with us that this program, Tax Matters, has gone a long way in filling the vacuum that Mrs. Odibo spoke about in that clip. Mrs. Odibo was delivering her welcome address at the inaugural Tax Sensitization and Awareness Workshop hosted by her office for the Alaba and Badagry tax jurisdictions in Lagos State. And it is with that we welcome you to today's episode of Tax Matters and to the month of September 2022, the beginning of the so-called Ember months. Don't you worry. These Ember months are great months that will bring great things to your homes and businesses. I'm talking about awareness, enlightenment, and taxpayer education. You'll recall that Tax Matters brought you the cheering news of the extension of filing and payment of companies' income tax for companies with accounting year January to December, which fell due on the 30th of June. But in its magnanimity, the FIRS decided that in view of the harsh business operating environment, such filers be given a 60-day extension, which moved their filing deadline from 30th June to 31st August 2022. Well, that extension has now lapsed. This is September. We do hope that you have done the needful as we commend the FIRS for its magnanimity.
Let's go taxing. Hand in hand, cheerfully. We go taxing as birds of a feather that flock around to make a living. With our sinews drawn on the field, we go to pay our taxes cheerfully, knowing that our lives come to naught without us taxing together, to build our homestead, to mend our lives anew, to make our lives whole. Let's go taxing, hand in hand cheerfully, drawing our strength like a boom that breaks knots, for taxing together makes us wholesome.
We have noticed from feedback that the last episode of the program sat very well with our audience, talking about the guest interview with Mr. Kabir Abba, Group Lead, General Tax Operations Group at the FIRS. As we did say at the end of that episode, the remaining part of the interview is the main menu on today's episode. But before that, we want to begin sharing with you the proceedings of a taxpayer sensitization session hosted by the Micro and Small Tax Office at Alaba in Lagos for the businessmen and women in that axis of Lagos State. Coincidentally, Mr. Abba was the presenter of the lead paper at the workshop. We will serve you excerpts from that paper before we go into the concluding part of his interview. Mrs. Cecilia Odibo is a tax controller of the FIRS Micro and Small Tax Office in Alaba, Lagos.
The Alaba Micro and Small Tax Office of the Federal Inland Revenue Service today is witnessing a monumental sensitization awareness workshop in an unprecedented manner, in form of participation and outreach to participants. Our mandate is to assess, collect, and account for taxes due to government. One of the major challenges posed to revenue collection performance is absence of taxpayers' awareness of their rights and duties to the tax authorities, and by extension to the federal government of Nigeria. It is no longer news that oil and gas revenue has dwindled, and the most reliable source of revenue is now from taxation from the non-oil sectors. Therefore, our focus and attention must be on how we can play our part to generate non-oil revenue that will sustain the economy of the most populous black nation in the world.
Theme of the sensitization workshop was voluntary compliance for improved revenue generation. In attendance were members of the Badagry Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, hoteliers, businessmen and women of the Alaba International Market, and many others. The Executive Chairman FIRS was represented by Mrs. Abba, State Coordinator, Lagos Mainland West of the FIRS, while Chairman of Session was Mazi MSTO, past President CITN and a former director at the FIRS. In the lead paper, Mr. Abba spoke about the obligations and rights of taxpayers.
As a taxpayer, you have a lot of rights and privileges. And these rights and privileges are as enshrined in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and as well as the extant laws we have in taxation and the FIRS Establishment Act. This sensitization and enlightenment program is one of your rights, because you have the right to be educated and to be enlightened on what you are expected to do. And of course, for every right, there comes some kind of obligations on your part as well. Section 24F states that it shall be the duty of every citizen to declare his income honestly and to appropriate and lawful agencies to pay his tax promptly. Likewise, Section 16 empowers the state to harness the resources of the nation for national prosperity.
Other papers were presented, followed by a robust interactive session. For the full gist of what transpired at that highly stimulating event, do well to join us next episode. Now to our guest corner. Mr. Abba, thank you for joining us on Tax Matters.
Thank you very much.
Now, what role does the FIRS play in providing revenue for the Nigerian government, and by your assessment, how well has FIRS played this role?
You see, taxation remains the only sustainable, source of income for economic growth and development of any, country. So FIRS plays a very, very vital role, because it is the only agency that has been mandated by the federal government, to assess, collect, and account for taxes accruable, to the federal government. And this is being done, of course, by the various legislation as enacted by the National Assembly and policy guidelines by the Ministry of Finance. This is what enables us, to carry out that mandate, of administering the various taxes that we administer in the country. Of course, we collect what we call the petroleum profit tax from the oil and gas companies. Companies income tax also, which is a tax that is paid by companies registered in Nigeria. There is a value added tax, which is a consumption tax. We also collect what we call the education tax on behalf of the TED fund. We have the technology tax, we have the stamp duties, and so many other taxes. So our role is very critical in the economy, and we're really doing very much, to see that all these revenues are being collected. And over the years, you can see with all the automation that we've been doing and the policies, as enshrined in the various laws and all that, we're really doing well. We now provide about 60 to 70% of the monies that have been shared at the Federation and Allocation and Accounts Committee, which in the past, FIRS contribution to the fact is not much. But I can assure you that we're now at the forefront with the people providing the monies that is even shared amongst the three tiers of government. So our role is very critical, and we're really doing what we're set up to do.
All right. So now let's come down to your department, the Tax Operations Group. So what role has your group played in improved revenue generation by the service, for the service?
You see, my group is what you call the General Tax Operations Group, who now oversees all the tax operations all over the country. So the first thing that we have been doing is what we call the sensitization, to make people aware that they are to pay taxes. So after the sensitization, we get them registered, and they will now be given what we call the TIN, Taxpayers Identification Number, which is unique. So after getting them registered, we sensitize them, and we try to bring them on board to come and make them file and pay their taxes. So we've played this very, critical role at the GTOG there. And we also, most of the time, have enlightenment sessions with the professional bodies who now do these accounts, in some cases on behalf of the taxpayers. We do a lot of monitoring, and when these taxpayers come to file in their returns, we guide them to do it electronically. And after doing that, we do what we call a desk review to check to see what they had filed in the tax office is correct and without any mistakes. If there are, of course, we now correct them and make them do the right thing. And of course, we ensure that whatever assessment that they come forward, that it's been, paid into the coffers of government through the banks. And of course, we are collaborating with another group, that is the compliance support group, to ensure that we risk profile these taxpayers so that they can be referred, for audit and investigation purposes. So this is the role of the, of the General Tax Operations Group. Yes.
All right, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Now, the FIRS has deployed technology for tax administration and has stated that it seeks 100% automation of its processes this year. Now, what reforms in technology has the FIRS embarked upon, and how have they impacted on revenue generation of the service?
Our processes have been automated from A to Z, because FIRS now, you can actually register for your businesses online. You can, raise assessments online. You can pay online, generate your tax clearance online. As we speak now, if you don't, become automated, you will be nowhere. So FIRS was also not left behind. But the interesting thing about the automation of the FIRS is that we have tried so many, so many ways and processes of automation. But what is most interesting now is that we now developed a homegrown, a full tax administration digital system, which we call the Tax Pro Max. This Tax Pro Max was developed in-house, by the service. And by that, it is a fully automated system of tax administration, from registration, to filing, to payment, to tax clearance certificates and all that. And you can do that, from the comfort of your offices and even homes. So the Tax Pro Max has actually proven that technology is the only way to go. That is one. And if you have noticed the Finance Act of 2020, Section 25 to be precise, where FIRS is given the powers, of course, to connect to systems of these taxpayers and their digital information to get informations about them. And of course, after 30 days of such notice, if the taxpayer does not comply, there's even a sanction of 25,000 naira daily for failure to do so. So automation has really helped us. Even in-house, the HR processes of the staff is also, automated. You apply, online for your leave, for your, a lot of things like that. So we've really gone and all the staff are on board this. So FIRS has actually automated all its processes as I speak to you. It has actually helped us, to get the system to be very accountable, and at the same time to make taxpayers feel so comfortable to do what is the correct thing to do. So all these reforms has taken us to an unprecedented levels, and you can see that from what we collected last year, a whopping sum of 6.4 trillion naira to the coffers of government, which is unprecedented. And the most interesting thing about it is that Nigeria has been an oil-dependent country but over the years now, I can assure you that we're really getting much more from non-oil. These reforms are still ongoing, and we're being supported, of course, by the policies and the National Assembly who enacts the law, because recently 2 laws were enacted through the Finance Act, where 2 other taxes were introduced, the Nigeria Police Trust Fund, where companies are to pay 0.005% to the coffers of government to support the police. There's the Naseni 0.2.5% of their profit before tax. So all this has helped us to, generate more revenue, to government. Yes, and it's still counting.
I'm a very busy man. My business involves a lot of traveling and I interface with lots and lots of people and organizations. Tax compliance used to be a big drag on my business. It was time consuming and very costly. But now, no more. Introducing the FIRS Tax Pro Max, the truly fully end-to-end tax administration solution for companies' income tax, value-added tax, petroleum profits tax, and all other tax types. For fast, efficient, and convenient end-to-end tax experience, log on to www.taxpromax.firs.gov.ng. Tax Pro Max has turned things around for me. It is fast, user-friendly, and cost-effective. FIRS, making tax administration as easy as ABC.
Sir, you mentioned that the service collected 6.4 trillion naira in 2021. Please give us a sneak preview into the FIRS 2022 half-year reports.
Yeah, you see, the federal government through the budget office gives us a budget every year. And for 2021, we were given a target of 5.9 trillion naira to collect, on behalf of the federal government. And at the end of the year, December 31st, 2021, we had collected over 100% of that amount because we collected over 6.4 trillion naira. And for this year, it seems to be much more promising, even though we have a very ambitious target. Last year's target was 5.9 trillion, but we were given a 10.4 trillion naira target this year, which is almost double of what was given last year. But from the preliminary reports I have now, before we do our final reconciliations, for January to June half year, we have collected over 4 trillion naira. And we still have 6 months to go. And we still have a lot of, things put in place. So I can assure you we're very optimistic of even, beating the target. And at the same time, too, even for the half-year unreconciled figures that I have, of the 4-point-something trillion naira, over 60% of that is still on the non-oil revenues. So non-oil revenue collection has come to stay because we can no longer depend on oil revenue. It's not sustainable. So the only sustainable revenue for any government to foster economic growth and development is the non-oil revenues, and we're really working hard on that. And I can assure you by the end of the year, God's will, in December 2022, I'm sure we're going to record very, very impressive figures.
That's right.
Thank you.
Now, sir, are there new areas the FIRS is tapping into with the aim of enhancing the tax revenue potentials at national and subnational levels?
Yes. You see, the tax administration we do in Nigeria is the 3 tiers of government actually, do tax administration in Nigeria. That's the federal, the states, and the local governments. We're talking about the FIRS, the State Inland Revenue Services, and the Revenue Authority. And of course, they all come under one umbrella, which we call the Joint Tax Board. And the Joint Tax Board, of course, is chaired by the chairman of the FIRS, who are working, together. There are new areas we actually tap in to actually show up revenue potentials at the both national and the subnational level, because that Joint Tax Board is now harmonizing, data for the benefit of all. We're collaborating with all the states' internal revenue service of the 36 states and the FCT with the FIRS. We share information, we share data, we also do some joint sensitizations and even audits together. This is a new area that is helping us, to get more revenues at the national and also at the sub-national, level. So another area which is not really new, because the Finance Act, the tax laws, and processes are being reviewed through the Finance Act. And of course, FIRS is now given the powers to automate VAT operations, because VAT is the tax that we pay, on monthly basis. So we have now been given the powers by the laws to automate this type of tax. And that is really new, and we've started with some sectors. We have started with the hospitality industry and the hotels. We're also automating the oil and gas sector. So we're going to do it sector by sector. This is really new, and by the time we finish automating, all the sectors, I can assure you that yes, revenues will continue to flow in, for government. So another new area, we have now decided to do what we call satellite offices, because some of these offices are, very not too close to most of the taxpayers. So we have now opened what we call satellite offices. They are about to be launched, of course, before the end of the year, and I think they're about 23 in number. We'll put some number of staff there, to help address, taxpayers. Because if you check out the Nigerian tax system, it preaches that we should be fair, equitable, it should be flexible with low compliance level. So we don't want a situation where our taxpayers have to travel miles or kilometers to go and file. And we also encourage them to use the platform, the automated platforms. So you don't even need to come to our office premises to do your tax things. I think it also suffices to add this. You see, we now recognize our most compliant taxpayers, because even in-house, to boost our staff morale, we have now done what to call the awards, for outstanding staff and offices. This has really boosted their morals. Promotions have been gotten now as at when due. Another area which is very important and critical, because prior to the coming of this administration, we have what I can refer to as quack, tax consultants and auditors. And they prepare all sorts of accounts and submit to the tax office, So we have now begun to, come together with the professional bodies, the ICANN, the CITN, the ANAN, and all other professional bodies, so we're now working together so that we can, sieve out to ensure that only professionals, do accounts on behalf of the taxpayers. And we're even in the process of, registering them to kind of give them some kind of license, so that it will be that what is for the professionals should be left for the professionals. There's another area, there are what we call the agents of collection. That is also backed by law. I'm talking about the state governments, ministries, departments, agencies, both at the federal and at the state level. They are mandated by the law to collect on behalf of of course, the FIRS, VAT and withholding taxes from contractors before making payments, and they are to render such, deductions to the FIRS. And of course, for some, they don't, tend to comply, even though majority are now, coming on board to do the right thing. But we also have some part of the law, which is Section 24, I think, of the FIRS Establishment Act, where the Accountant General of the Federation, is mandated to deduct, directly from state governments or ministries or agencies from their statutory allocations, if they don't, deduct and, pay to the service. So all these things are things that are ongoing, and this has actually translated into all the figures that you see us reporting, as revenue, generated on behalf of the government.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kabir Abba. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Anytime you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
There you are, FIRS unveiled. We are sure that you agree that so many good things are happening at the FIRS, and that in keeping with its mandate, the FIRS is contributing greatly to the raising of the much needed revenue for the running of our dear country, Nigeria. We wrap up this episode by paying tribute to Tokme Alamu, a long-serving editor of this program who has gone home to meet his creator. Adieu, Tokme Alamu. Fare thee well. Let us meet again on this same platform, same station, same day of the week and same time of the day next week. Thank you for watching.